Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Nights. This is Kevin, and tonight we have a cozy collection of magical creatures. Moonlight filtered through the cracks between the bakery floorboards, casting silver bars across the darkness below. Dust motes drifted in the pale beams like tiny little stars. In this hidden world, beneath old Edmund's bakery, 6 mice stood in formal positions around an overturned wooden spool. Their meeting table, their war room, their place of honor. Sir Crumble-Whisk stood at attention, distinguished by the red thread scarf wrapped around his neck. His whiskers were properly groomed, his posture noble, despite his small stature. He cleared his throat with great ceremony. "Knights of the Cheese Table," he began, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "We stand tonight on the threshold of destiny. We gather to discuss point of order," a reedy voice interrupted from the left. Sir Crumble-Whisk's whiskers twitched with barely suppressed irritation. He turned slowly to face Pip, the smallest mouse present, who clutched a tiny ledger made from folded paper scraps. Wire-frame spectacles, fashioned from a bent paperclip, perched precariously on his small nose. "Pip," Sir Crumble-Whisk said, with strained patience, "what is the nature of your point of order?" "We haven't confirmed quorum, sir. I need to take official attendance before we can proceed with formal business." Sir Crumble-Whisk took a deep breath. "Oh, very well, proceed with roll call." Pip straightened importantly. "Pip," he made a mark, "present and recording." Hazelnut, the twitchy brown mouse with exceptionally large ears, jumped slightly. Here, sir." "Good. Chedrick?" The largest mouse in their group stood even straighter.
"Reporting for duty, sir."
"Gouda?" A grey mouse with perpetually skeptical eyes sighed deeply.
"Present, though I maintain we should discuss last week's outstanding action items."
"Noted." "And Brie?" The youngest mouse, white with brown spots, practically vibrated with enthusiasm. "Reporting for duty, sir." "Shh!" 5 voices hushed him immediately.
"Oh, sorry,"
Brie whispered frantically. And then, a distant thump from above froze everyone in mid-breath. The temperature seemed to drop. Every mouse went absolutely still. Even Pip stopped mid-notation. Hazelnut's large ears swiveled upward. That's That's Lady Whiskerburn, he whispered, barely audible. On the counter directly above the pantry entrance. Above them, an elegant cat stretched across the wooden counter. Lady Whiskerburn's green eyes opened lazily, fixing on the floorboards below. Her tail swished once, twice. She knew. Below, 6 mice stood like statues. No one breathed. Does anyone move on 3? Sir Crumblewhisk whispered. Or stay frozen? Is she going to eat us? Bree's voice cracked. Statistically, probably not, Gouda hissed. She hasn't in the last 47 encounters. I've been keeping track. Above them, Lady Whiskerburn yawned, revealing her sharp teeth. She stretched, then padded away into the darkness. Every mouse exhaled simultaneously. Now then, Sir Crumplewhisk straightened his scarf. We have confirmed quorum. Tonight, my fellow knights, we gather for the most important mission in our order's history. Sir Crumplewhisk moved to reveal a map drawn in flour on flat stone. The crude lines depicted the bakery layout. Every counter, shelf, and crack meticulously labeled. For 7 generations, he said, we have called ourselves the Knights of the Cheese Table. He gestured to the wooden spool beneath their feet. This here table, named for a legendary treasure our ancestors once guarded. A treasure spoken in whispers and in songs. A treasure none of us have ever tasted. He paused, letting those words sink in. Tonight, that legend walks among us once more. Bree's eyes went wide. You mean there's cheese here? Oh, Sir Crumplewhisk tapped the map. Old Edmund the baker has brought cheese into this bakery for the first time in decades. He's making cheese-stuffed harvest rolls for the autumn festival. A wheel of golden cheese sits in the lower pantry at this very moment. Silence fell, and all of a sudden they could smell it. Faint but intoxicating, seeping through the floorboards. A scent unlike anything in their world of flour and seeds. But sir, Bree said slowly, what is cheese? Pip flipped through his ledger. According to the oral histories from my grandmother's grandmother, who claimed her grandmother remembered when cheese was common here. It is described as smooth as silk, sharp as winter, golden as the sun at harvest time, precious as water in summer. She also said it was the stars made edible, worthy any pearl to obtain.
That's poetic, but not helpful,
Gouda said skeptically. What is it physically? Is it bread? Is it grain? Is it seeds?
It's made from milk, Sir Crumblewhisk explained. Aged milk from cows. We've never seen one ourselves, but the old stories speak of them. Yes, great beasts that lived in fields. The humans take their milk and age it deliberately. They make it solid somehow.
Confused silence greeted this. Milk goes bad, Chedrick said carefully. Is it bad milk? Controlled badness? Good badness?
I'm scared,
Hazelnut admitted. The scrolls also say, worth any peril, Pip added quietly. Every mouse went quiet, sniffing the air. The smell was intoxicating, complex, utterly unlike their daily fare. It made their whiskers tingle. We have to get it, Bree breathed. If we don't at least try. We're not really knights of the cheese table. We're just mice with a fancy name we don't deserve or understand. Even Gouda nodded slowly. The young one's right. It's a matter of honor now. Sir Crumblewhisk began marking the flower map. The obstacles are significant. First, distance. 15 mouse lengths across completely open floor from our tunnel to the pantry door. No cover whatsoever. Lady Whiskerburn could spot us from a dozen positions. He marked an X on the counter. Second, this is her preferred patrol route. She watches from here most nights. Another mark at the pantry. Third, the door. Old Edmund leaves it slightly ajar, but slightly still means squeezing through a narrow gap. Especially for our larger members. He glanced at Chedrick.
I can squeeze when I need to,
Chedrick said quietly. Fourth, the cheese itself sits on the lowest shelf. Now that's good, but positioned dead center. No cover approach. If Lady Whiskerburn enters the pantry while we're inside, we're trapped. She goes in regularly, Pip added, consulting notes. 37 visits last month. She's hunting field mice from outside. The big aggressive ones that steal grain in bulk. She's
She's very thorough.
Sombre silence fell.
So, what's the plan?
Bree asked.
I could run very fast, Chedrick offered. Straight dash, grab cheese, run back.
You're large, and she'll see you, Gauda said immediately. Your footfalls are heavier. She'll hear you. What if we all run at once? Bree suggested. She can't catch everyone.
Casualties could be high, Sir Crumblewhisk said. Let's keep that as Plan F.
What about a distraction? Pip suggested. Create noise in the front shop to draw her attention away, while a smaller team retrieves the cheese. Sir Crumblewhisk's whiskers perked up.
Now that has potential. Elaborate.
Well, if we knock something metal, knock it over, make significant noise, her hunting instincts will compel her to investigate. That gives us a window. How long a window? Gauda asked skeptically. Unknown, but long enough for two fast mice to enter the pantry, retrieve the cheese, and exit. And who creates this distraction? Hazelnut asked. Whoever does will be in most danger. I'll do it, Bree volunteered immediately.
You'll need backup,
Gauda sighed. Someone with experience. I'll go with him. Someone needs to keep the young fool alive. Bree looked at Gauda with surprise and gratitude. Really? Someone has to. Sir Crumblewhisk nodded approvingly.
Good. Then, Operation Golden Sun, Phase 1.
Hazelnut scouts the route and confirms Lady Whiskerburn's position. Phase 2. Gauda and Bree create diversion by knocking over the metal measuring cup in the front shop. Phase 3. Chedrick and I retrieve the cheese. Phase 4. Tactical retreat via the baseboard tunnel. Everyone clear? Clear, sir. Well, we should vote, Pip said. According to bylaws.
Yes, you're right.
All in favor? 5 paws raised. 1 didn't.
Gauda?
I abstain. I have reservations. I want officially noted in the minutes. Noted, Pip wrote quickly. Motion to obtain cheese, carried 1 abstention. 1 question, Pip said. The cheese is large. How do we take it? Debate erupted. Weight versus volume, carrying capacity, optimal load. Sir Crumblewhisk raised his paw for silence.
Enough. We take enough to taste. This isn't about hoarding supplies. This is about being worthy of our name, about knowing what our ancestors knew, about honor and heritage. Understanding settled over them. This wasn't just a supply raid. This was a pilgrimage. We move at moon high, and the moon is directly above the chimney. Knights of the cheese table, are you with me? Aye, sir. All voices rang in unison. Sir Crumblewhisk placed his paw in the center of the table. One by one, the others placed theirs on top. A circle of loyalty, a bond of fellowship. For the cheese table, Sir Crumblewhisk said. For the cheese table, they echoed. Bree's voice was barely a whisper. This is the best night of my life. Pip made a final notation. Oath taken. Operation Golden Sun approved. Commence at moon high. When moon high arrived, Hazelnut crept out first. His role was crucial. Scout the route, identify dangers, confirm Lady Whiskerburn's position. Everything depended on accurate intelligence. He hugged the baseboard, his large ears swiveling constantly. Every few steps he froze completely, testing the air, listening with absolute focus. Behind him, Pip whispered frantically while taking notes. What do you see? Any movement? Shush, I'm trying to concentrate. Hazelnut continued his careful progress. Floorboard 7, slightly springy, will make noise, going around. Floorboard 8, flour dust, very slippery. Mental note, avoid. Floorboard 9, solid, good. He reached the halfway point and paused, pressing flat against the baseboard. His ears rotated independently, scanning for danger. There, on the windowsill, Lady Whiskerburn's silhouette was unmistakable, backlit by cold window glow. She sat upright, alert, but facing the window, watching something outside. Her back was to the pantry door. Hazelnut's heart raced. This was as good as they'd get. He turned and scurried back, moving faster now. He tumbled through the tunnel entrance. Report, Sir Crumblewhisk whispered. Route is clear, Hazelnut gasped. Lady Whiskerburn is on the windowsill, watching outside. Her back is to the pantry. If we move now, right now, we have the best chance we'll get. Pip fumbled with his ledger. Wait, I need to file this scout report. Now, Sir Crumblewhisk commanded sharply. For once I agree, Gouda said urgently. If we wait, she'll move. We go now.
Pip stuffed his ledger away, flustered. They moved in practiced formation. Hazelnut led, followed by Bree and Gouda, then Sir Crumblewisk and Chedrick, with Pip bringing up the rear. The journey felt endless. Every shadow hid predators. Every creak sounded like doom. But they moved as one unit, 6 mice united in purpose. The pantry door grew closer. The smell of cheese was stronger here, almost overwhelming. They were going to make it. The plan was working, and then creak. The sound came from above. The stairs. Every mouse froze instantly, bodies rigid with instinctive terror. The ancient response to danger: become still, become small, become invisible. The creaking continued, slow, rhythmic footsteps. Heavy, human footsteps. Candlelight flickered at the top of the stairwell, growing brighter. Old Edmund appeared, descending in his nightshirt and sleeping cap. He muttered to himself, "Oh, cheese should be wrapped properly. Can't let good cheese dry out." The 6 mice were caught in the worst possible position. In the open floor, halfway between the tunnel and pantry. Too far from any cover, they could only remain still and hope. Edmund reached the bottom and lit a candle on the counter. Warm yellow light spread across the floor, revealing 6 motionless mice, frozen mid-journey. He walked directly toward the pantry, directly toward them. His enormous feet in worn slippers came down with mountain weight. Each step shook the floor. His right foot landed inches from Bree, whose eyes were huge with terror. He wasn't breathing. He didn't dare. Edmund walked past without seeing them. To his aged eyes in dim light, they were just shadows. Insignificant shapes that belonged in a bakery. He entered the pantry. Sounds of rummaging, paper rustling, the cheese being unwrapped, continued muttering, then the scrape of cloth being wrapped tight. Time stretched. Each second felt like an hour. Bree's lungs burned. Chedrick's legs trembled. Pip had frozen mid-step. Finally, Edmund emerged, wiping his hands on his nightshirt, satisfied with his work. The wheel remained on the lowest shelf, properly rewrapped now. He pulled the door behind him, not fully closed, but much narrower than before. The baker shuffled back upstairs, The bakery returned to darkness. Long, trembling silence.
"This is why I abstained," Gouda whispered. "Not now," Sir Crumplewhisk responded. "The gap's too narrow," Gouda said. "Mission abort." "We can still fit." Everyone looked at Chedrick, who stared at his broad shoulders with dismay. I might not fit through that gap, but I'll try," he added firmly. "I didn't come this far to turn back." Pride swelled in Sir Crumplewhisk's chest. "Good mouse. We adjust, but we don't abandon." "Where's Lady Whiskerburn?" Hazelnut's ears flattened with panic. They looked. The windowsill was empty. She was gone. "No, no, no," Hazelnut whimpered. "Where is she?" Panic rippled through the group. Every head swiveled, searching. Lady Whiskerburn stepped out from behind a flour sack, directly between them and the pantry. She sat down gracefully, tail swishing slowly. She'd been waiting, watching everything. She knew exactly what they were doing. "New plan," Sir Crumplewhisk whispered. "We commit. Distraction team. Now." "But she's right there," Bree's voice cracked. "Which is why you move now, before she positions herself better. Go." Training overrode fear. Bree and Gouda bolted toward the front shop. Lady Whiskerburn's head snapped toward the movement, ears forward, haunches shifting. They reached the shelf and shoved the measuring cup together. The cup teetered, fell, clang. It hit the floor and rolled. Clang, clang, clang. Lady Whiskerburn's pupils dilated. She was torn. Mice here, noise there. The noise won. She pounced after Bree and Gouda, who were already running, splitting up, using their knowledge of the shop to create a complex chase. "Go!" Sir Crumplewhisk sprinted for the pantry, Chedrick and Hazelnut right behind. They reached the gap. Sir Crumplewhisk slipped through easily. Hazelnut followed. Chedrick pushed forward and wedged tight. A faint wood grit creak, a splinter scraping his flank. "Push! I am pushing!" From outside, Pip watched in horror. "Should I help?" "Stay there. Be our lookout," Sir Crumplewhisk called. Chedrick wiggled frantically, twisted. Pop. He tumbled through, crashing into the others. Inside the pantry, it was almost pitch black, except for a thin wash of window light through a high opening. That pale beam fell like a spotlight on the lowest shelf. And there, There it was. The cheese. A wheel the size of a dinner plate from their perspective. Enormous, impossibly large. Wrapped partially in white cloth, but a substantial portion exposed. The exposed section glowed, golden in the pale light, exactly as the stories described. The surface slightly waxy, clearly solid, absolutely perfect. They were awestruck. 7 generations of legend, and here it was, real, within reach. "It's real," Chedrick whispered, voice filled with wonder. "I thought maybe the stories were exaggerated, but it's real, and it's beautiful." "We need to move," Sir Crumplewhisk said, though even his urgency couldn't mask the awe in his voice. "Quickly." They climbed, using bags and boxes as steps. The smell was overwhelming this close. Sharp and rich and complex beyond description, it made their heads feel light. Sir Crumplewhisk reached the cheese first. He placed one paw on its surface. Cool, slightly yielding but mostly firm. Unlike anything he'd felt before. He pulled out his needle knife and positioned it against the cheese. He cut carefully. The knife went through easier than expected. The cheese yielded, crumbling slightly. A piece the size of Chedrick's head came away. And the smell. Oh, the smell intensified so dramatically. All 3 mice felt dizzy. By the cheese table, Hazelnut breathed. "That smell." "Sir," Pip's panicked voice came through. "The cat's coming back. You need to hurry." The spell broke. Chedrick took the cheese carefully, cradling it like spun gold. "Got it. Let's move." They scrambled down, moving efficiently despite the awkward burden. They reached the pantry door and squeezed through. Chedrick going first this time, protecting the cheese with his body as he forced himself through the gap. They emerged to find Lady Whiskerburn blocking their escape. Bree and Gouda appeared from the shadows behind her. All 6 mice were trapped. Chedrick clutched the cheese tighter. Sir Crumplewhisk stepped forward, placing himself between his knights and the predator. He drew himself up to his full height. "Run," he said quietly. "I'll distract her. Get the cheese to safety." "That's suicide," Gouda protested. "It is my duty. Go." But no one moved. They stood together, refusing to abandon their commander. Sir Crumplewhisk faced Lady Whiskerburn directly, meeting her with enormous green eyes, with his small black ones. Lady Whiskerburn, he said clearly. We seek only what we need. One small piece of cheese. Nothing more. We mean no disrespect to your territory or your role. We simply ask that you let us pass with honor, please. The cat looked at him. Really looked. The standoff lasted several heartbeats. Lady Whiskerburn's eyes moved from Sir Crumplewhisk to the cheese in Chedric's paws, then back to his face. Some calculation happened between those green eyes. She sniffed the air, caught the scent of the cheese, then the scent of the mice themselves. Small pantry mice, not the aggressive field mice she hunted. Different prey entirely. From upstairs. Whiskerburn, here, kitty. Old Edmund's voice. Lady Whiskerburn's ears flicked toward the stairs. She looked at the stairs, at the mice, at the stairs again. Then, deliberately, she angled her head toward the tunnel entrance, just slightly. A gesture that might mean nothing, or might mean run. She stepped aside, just moved out of their path, leaving a clear route to the tunnel. The mice stood in shock. I thank you, Sir Crumplewhisk managed. Lady Whiskerburn yawned, slowly, deliberately, revealing every sharp tooth. A reminder of what she could have done. Then she stood gracefully and padded upstairs, answering her human's call. What just happened? Gauda whispered, utterly confused. I don't know. Move. They scrambled for the tunnel. 6 mice running as fast as their little legs could carry them. Pip held the entrance open, ushering them through frantically. They stumbled into safety. They'd made it. They collapsed in a heap, breathing hard, hearts hammering. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Bree started laughing. Relief and disbelief mixed together. The others joined in, the sound echoing through the tunnel. When the laughter subsided, Sir Crumplewhisk smiled. Knights, we just survived Operation Golden Sun. Well done. Now let's get this cheese home. Pip scribbled quickly in his ledger. Phase 4 complete. All knights returned. 0 casualties. Cheese secured. The journey back through the tunnels felt different. Shorter, lighter. the weight of 7 generations of legend now fulfilled. They emerged at the cheese table. Chedrick placed the cheese reverently in the center. Golden, real, magnificent. Sir Crumblewhisk stood, composing himself despite exhaustion. Knights, tonight we've done what 7 generations could not. We faced Lady Whiskerburn and survived. We've ventured into the pantry and returned. We've claimed our heritage. He gestured to the cheese. This is not simply food. This is proof. Proof we are worthy of our name. Proof the legends were true. Proof we are, truly and completely, Knights of the Cheese Table. Pip's paw shook as he raised it. Should I record this, sir? Yes. Record that on this night, 23rd of autumn, in the 47th year of Old Edmund's Bakery, the Knights of the Cheese Table earned their name. Pip nodded, pulling out his ledger with trembling paws. He began to write with careful precision. Sir Crumblewhisk cut the cheese into 6 portions with his needle knife. He handed one to each knight ceremonially. They held them, suddenly afraid. What if it's not as good as the stories? Bree whispered. What if we risked everything for disappointment? Gouda added. What if I don't like it? Hazelnut worried. Sir Crumblewhisk looked at them each in turn. Then we'll know together. Ready? 1, 2, or 3. They tasted cheese for the very first time. Silence. Complete silence. The taste was sharp and creamy simultaneously, salt and rich, with layers of flavor that unfolded like a story. There was a crystalline crunch of aged curd, a buttery smear on the whiskers. Complex in ways their diet had never prepared them for. It was everything the legends promised and more. The sun made edible, worthy of any pearl. Tears formed in Chedrick's eyes. Oh, he whispered. Oh, it's... Bree couldn't find the words. He simply sat there, tears streaming, utterly overwhelmed. Pip stopped taking notes entirely. His ledger lay forgotten as he savored each moment, eyes closed. Even Gouda had no criticisms. I have to admit, he said slowly, this was worth it. Every moment of terror, every risk, this was worth it all. Hazelnut smiled, really smiled. We did it. We really are Knights of the Cheese Table now. They sat together, savoring slowly, making it last. No one spoke. They simply existed in this moment of triumph.
The taste lingered sharp at first, then creamy, leaving pleasant saltiness that made them want another bite even as they finished. When the last crumbs were gone, they sat in satisfied silence. Pip stirred and picked up his ledger. By candlelight he began to write. Tonight, the Knights of the Cheese Table completed Operation Golden Sun, successfully retrieving... Pip, Sir Crumplewhisk interrupted gently. The small mouse looked up. Just right. We tasted cheese. It was magnificent. Pip stared for a moment, then smiled. He crossed out what he'd written and inscribed the new words carefully. We tasted cheese. It was magnificent. Chadwick sighed contentedly. Can we do it again tomorrow? Everyone laughed warmly. Let's wait a few days, Gouda suggested, his tone gentler than usual. Give Lady Whiskerburn time to forget, or pretend to forget. Do you think she'll remember? Bree asked. They all considered this, remembering how she'd stepped aside, how she'd angled her head towards safety. High above, Lady Whiskerburn settled onto her shelf in the pantry. She looked down at the cheese wheel wrapped in its fresh cloth. There was a tiny piece missing from one edge, barely noticeable to human eyes. She examined it with what might have been approval in her luminous eyes. Then she glanced toward the floorboards, as if she could see through the wood and darkness to the small creatures celebrating below. Pantry mice, she decided. Not grain thieves, different. She settled to sleep, one eye half open, watching the floorboards, always watching, but perhaps occasionally looking away. Beneath the floorboards, 6 exhausted mice sat around the cheese table, the last traces of cheese lingering on their whiskers. Sir Crumplewhisk stood. Until our next adventure. They touched paws in the center. A promise, a bond, forged in flower dust and moonlight and legendary cheese finally tasted. 6 silhouettes around an overturned spool. The Knights of the Cheese Table. Worthy of their name. At last. My name is Cornelius Blackwater, and I have been a toad for precisely 217 years. 4 months and 6 days. Not that I'm counting. Well, actually, I am counting. There's very little else to do when you're a toad sitting in a terrarium on the reference desk of Thornwick Academy's library. To be clear, this is entirely my own fault. 2 centuries ago, in what I now recognize as a moment of spectacular hubris, I engaged in a magical duel with Randolph the Red over a disputed theorem about elemental transmutation. I was so confident in my abilities, court wizard to 3 kings, master of the elemental arts, acclaimed throughout the realm, that I attempted to demonstrate my superiority by casting a particularly complex transformation spell. I intended to turn Randolph into a toad. I succeeded in turning someone into a toad. Unfortunately, due to a miscalculated angle of reflection involving his highly polished shield, that someone was me. The spell was irreversible. I checked extensively for 40 years. Now I've made my peace with amphibian existence. I've discovered certain advantages to being a toad. No one expects anything of you. You can listen to every conversation in the library without anyone guarding their words. The flies, while undignified, are at least fresh. And most importantly, no one bothers you with tedious requests to solve their problems or teach their unteachable children. At present, I'm attempting to read a comprehensive history of the elemental wars by Professor Horace Windermere, who apparently received his degree from a correspondence course run by blind chipmunks. The book lies open on the desk beside my terrarium, positioned at an angle that allows me to read while maintaining the appearance of a common toad doing common toad things. The Battle of Frozen Falls, I read, was won by the ingenious strategy of Archmage Cornelius Blackwater, who summoned a wall of fire to melt the enemy's ice fortifications. I didn't summon anything. I convinced the enemy commander that I had cursed his mustache to fall out unless he surrendered. The man was extraordinarily vain. The battle was won through psychology, not pyrotechnics. But apparently that's not dramatic enough for modern historians. I attempt to turn the page with my tongue, a skill I've been working on for decades, and fail spectacularly, leaving only a wet smear across the corner. "Oh, Cornelius, have you been reading again?" Mrs. Kettlewick, the head librarian, peers at me through her spectacles. She's one of the few humans who treats me like I have a functioning brain, though she doesn't know the half of it. "You're such a clever boy." I'm a 237-year-old archmage who once advised kings, but yes, I'm a clever boy because I can follow text. She produces a small container from her pocket. "Dinner time." I watch with resignation as she sprinkles several live flies into my terrarium. This is perhaps the worst part of toad existence. Maintaining the charade requires actually eating like a toad. My tongue shoots out automatically. Catching a fly before my dignity can lodge a formal protest taste is exactly as terrible as it was yesterday. Through the library windows, I can hear students chattering with unusual excitement. You see, tomorrow is the familiar bonding ceremony, the annual ritual where first-year students are matched with their magical companions. Every year, some unfortunate soul gets assigned to me. They look at the toad in the terrarium. Their faces fall, and within a week they've requested a transfer. 23 students in 60 years. 23 disappointments. Most can't hear my telepathic voice. That requires rare magical sensitivity. The few who could either thought they were going mad or decided that a talking toad was somehow worse than a silent one. I've learned not to speak first. Better to let them trade me back quickly than watch hope turn to disappointment over weeks. The next morning, I'm transported from my comfortable library terrarium to the Great Hall, along with the other unbound familiars. This is always an undignified process, being carried about like luggage while simultaneously trying to maintain the appearance of an ordinary toad. The Great Hall has been decorated with floating candles and ceremonial banners. I sit in my glass prison on a side table, watching the first-year students file in. They all have that mixture of excitement and terror that young wizards wear like ill-fitting robes. I've learned to spot certain types over the years. There's always one supremely confident student. This year it appears to be a tall girl with perfect posture and an air of aristocratic entitlement. There's the boisterous one who can't stand still, a boy with red hair who keeps elbowing his neighbors. And then there's always at least one who looks like they're about to be sick from anxiety. This year's anxiety case is a thin boy with dark hair that sticks up in odd directions despite his obvious attempts to flatten it. He's clutching a notebook, and his lips are moving, either praying or reciting something he's memorized. His eyes keep darting around the room like he's looking for escape routes. Poor boy. He'll probably get that aggressive-looking raven that's been hissing at everyone. Headmistress Thornwhistle begins her speech about the sacred bond between wizard and familiar. How the magic chooses. How this partnership will shape their magical education. I've heard this speech 60 times. It hasn't improved. The bondings begin alphabetically. I watch as students approach and wait for their match. The confident girl, Blackthorn apparently, gets a magnificent snowy owl. that lands on her arm like they've been rehearsing. Of course she does. The universe has a sense of humor, but it's not that creative. The red-haired boy gets an energetic ferret that immediately climbs all over him. He looks delighted. On and on it goes, each student bonding with something appropriate or impressive or at least moderately useful. Then, Theodore Willowbrook. Ah, the anxious one. He walks forward like he's approaching his own execution, and I realize with some amusement that his hands are trembling. He stops in front of the remaining familiars. The cranky raven that no one wants, a grey cat that's been sleeping through the entire ceremony, and me. The raven takes one look at him and flies to the far corner of its cage. Even the raven doesn't want this boy. The cat opens one eye, assesses him with feline disdain, and goes back to sleep. That leaves me. The boy, Theodore, stares at me with an expression of profound dismay. I stare back because that's what toads do, though I'm equally unenthused about this arrangement. Then I feel it. The bond magic activating. That warm golden thread reaching out from my consciousness towards his. This is the part I have no control over. The magic decides, not me. The golden light that emerges from my terrarium is pathetically weak compared to the brilliant flares I saw with other bondings. Several students actually gasp, and not in a good way. "Oh," Headmistress Thornwhistle says, with forced cheerfulness. "How lovely, Theodore. You've bonded with Cornelius. He's been our library toad for quite some time." There's giggling, whispered commentary. I can read the boy's face perfectly. This is his worst nightmare realized. He's been assigned the joke familiar, a consolation prize, the toad that no one wants. Well, welcome to my world, Theodore Willowbrook. The confident girl, Blackthorn, approaches him with sympathy. "I'm sorry," she says quietly, which confirms that, yes, everyone thinks this is terrible. Theodore takes my terrarium with shaking hands. Through our new bond, I can feel his emotions. A churning mess of humiliation, disappointment, and anxiety so intense it's actually quite impressive. This boy worries the way other people breathe. A red-haired boy tries to console him as they leave. Hey, toads are good at sitting on things, and they eat flies, which is useful for pest control. Even his friends can't come up with a convincing reason that this bonding isn't a disaster. Back in what I presume is Theodore's dormitory room, I'm placed on a desk. Through our bond, I can feel his despair building. Once the roommate leaves for dinner, Theodore slumps in his chair and stares at me. I stare back, maintaining my toad facade. Through our bond, I can feel his anxiety spiraling into darker territory. "It's fine," he whispers to himself. "It's fine. Maybe there's hidden potential. Maybe he's actually advanced. Maybe toads have secret abilities no one knows about. Maybe..." I can't take it anymore. The boy is going to worry himself into a complete breakdown. "Oh, for the love of magic, stop catastrophizing. You're giving me a headache." Theodore freezes. Completely, utterly freezes. His eyes go wide. Did you? Yes, I spoke telepathically. Through our bond, congratulations, you're not completely incompetent. You can actually hear me. That's rarer than you'd think. He's staring at me like I've grown a second head. I'm hallucinating, he says. The stress finally broke me. I'm hearing voices from a toad. You're not hallucinating, you absolute turnip. I'm Cornelius Blackwater, formerly Archmage of the Northern Territories, Court Wizard to 3 Kings, Master of the Elemental Arts, and currently, yes, regrettably, a toad. His face goes through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, hope, more confusion. Then his eyes roll back and he collapses. He fainted. The boy actually fainted. When Theodore comes to a few minutes later, his roommate is shaking him with concern. I maintain my innocent toad expression while the boy stammers something about not eating enough breakfast. After the roommate leaves again, Theodore approaches my terrarium cautiously. You can really talk. Obviously, we've established this. But you said you were an archmage. 217 years ago, I was indeed Cornelius Blackwater, archmage and all-round impressive wizard.
I had a spelling duel that went wrong. Turned myself into a toad and discovered that the spell was irreversible.
You've been a toad for 200 years.
217, I believe. Not much else to do but count. No hands for spell casting. Wrong vocal cords for incantations. Excellent for catching flies, yes, but terrible for everything else.
Theodore pulls his chair over and sits. But you still know magic. You were a court wizard. You must know everything.
I retain all the knowledge I accumulated over 60 years of study, plus 2 centuries of reading. Fat lot of good it does me without opposable thumbs.
Yeah, but you can still teach.
Hope. The most dangerous thing. In 60 years at this academy, you are the 24th student I've been bonded to. Previous 23 either couldn't hear me telepathically or heard me and decided a talking toad was worse than a silent one. Usually they trade me back within a week.
23 students, Theodore repeats quietly.
Yes, so if you want to request a different familiar, I won't be offended.
Theodore looks at me, really looks at those ancient, sad eyes.
No, he says firmly. I'm sorry. No.
Everyone already thinks I'm a weird one who's got the useless familiar. If I trade you back, it proves them right. Besides, you're not useless. You're an archmage.
Was an archmage. Now I'm a toad who can't turn pages.
Yeah, but you still know things. I'm terrible at magic. I panic and I turn things into cheese. But you know everything. So maybe together we're not completely hopeless. For the first time in 60 years, I'm genuinely quite surprised.
Counterclockwise, 1 rotation during stress moments. It helps with stability.
You mean you'd really help me?
We're bonded now. Might as well make the best of it. Ground rules. You don't tell anyone I can talk. Properly cushioned pocket. We work together.
Deal?
He extends his finger. I touch my tiny foot to it through the glass. The bond between us pulses, slightly stronger. The roommate, Marcus, bursts back into the room 15 minutes later, his face pale with panic.
My spellbook. It's gone.
Theodore looks up.
What do you mean it's gone?
I left it on my desk this morning before the ceremony. Now it's just gone. And I need it for tomorrow's practical transfiguration class. All my notes are in there. All the formulas Professor Grimwald gave us.
Maybe you've just misplaced it.
No, I've looked everywhere.
Marcus is now rifling through his trunk for what appears to be the third time. There's a knock at the door. A girl pokes her head in. Have either of you seen a silver wand, Focus? Mine's disappeared and I could have sworn I left it on my dresser during the ceremony. Marcus and Theodore exchange glances.
My spellbook is missing too,
Marcus says. After she leaves, Theodore turns to look at me. Did you hear that? He whispers. I heard very interesting. What's interesting about theft? What's interesting is the timing and the targets. Items stolen during the bonding ceremony when everyone is assembled in the Great Hall. And not valuables, academic materials. Specifically things needed for tomorrow's practical classes. Well, what does that mean? It means, my dear Theodore, that someone doesn't want their fellow students to succeed tomorrow. This isn't opportunistic theft. This is deliberate sabotage. Marcus is now tearing his room apart, growing more frantic. Through our bond, I can feel Theodore's sympathy. He knows that terror of failing. Can we find out who did it? Theodore asks quietly. I consider this. Getting involved seems complicated, but I'm bored. And this is the first interesting thing in years. We could try. It would require investigation, deduction, and you appearing confident while questioning suspects. You think you can manage that? Theodore's anxiety immediately spikes through our bond. Oh, I don't know. I'm not good at that kind of thing. No, but I am. Or rather, I was. You'll be my legs and my voice. I'll be your brain and strategy. Together, we might actually accomplish something useful. Now, first question. Ask Marcus exactly when he last saw the spellbook and who had access to this room. Theodore takes a deep breath. Marcus, when exactly did you last see a spellbook? "20 minutes later, Theodore is walking through the first-year dormitory, with me tucked carefully into his robe pocket, cushioned with a spare sock that Marcus donated without asking questions. This is deeply undignified, I complain through our mental link. I once rode in crystal carriages, pulled by enchanted horses. Now I'm in a pocket that smells faintly of cheese. That was just one time, and it transformed back. The scent lingers. We've spent the last 20 minutes gathering information. 5 students total have had items stolen. 2 spellbooks, potion ingredients, a wand focus, and a familiar care manual. All items taken during the ceremony. All needed for tomorrow's classes. Stop hunching, I instruct. You look very suspicious. Walk like you have every right to be investigating. Confidence is 9/10 performance.
But I'm not confident.
Then perform confidence. It's what half of successful wizards do anyway. Straighten your spine. He tries, though the result is more awkward than commanding. Still, it's better than his previous anxiety slouch. We find Vivian Blackthorne in the first-year common room, reading a book on familiar bonds with her snowy owl preening on a perch beside her.
Excuse me,
Theodore says.
Ask if she saw anything unusual during the ceremony, I prompt. Yeah, did you see anything unusual during the ceremony?
Vivian looks up from her book.
Oh, hello, Theodore. Unusual? Like what? Just like anyone leaving early or acting suspicious. Not that I noticed. Why? Some items have been stolen. Several students are missing materials for tomorrow's classes.
Oh, that's terrible. She looks genuinely concerned.
Oh, no, I was in the Great Hall the entire time. Everyone was... well, except...
She pauses.
Actually, I did see someone leave halfway through. Emily Renworth. She's a second year, but she failed last year, so she's retaking first-year practicals. I remember thinking it was odd that she'd leave during the ceremony.
Emily Renworth, I repeat to Theodore. Interesting. Ask her why a second year would care about first-year materials. Theodore asks the question aloud. Vivian considers this.
I suppose if she's retaking the year, she'd be in the same classes as us tomorrow. Still, stealing seems excessive. Emily's been acting strange lately. Very stressed.
We thank her and move on. Over the next hour, we interview 4 more students, all of whom confirm seeing Emily Renworth leaving the ceremony early, looking nervous or distracted.
So, it's definitely Emily,
Theodore says once we're alone in a stairwell.
What do we do now?
Now we need proof. Where would a student hide stolen items?
Their room?
Too obvious. Random search by faculty is always possible. Think, Theodore. Somewhere more private but still accessible. Where do students go when they want to work alone? He thinks for a moment. The practice rooms? Emily's been using room 7 a lot. I've seen her name on the schedule board. Excellent deduction. See? You're not completely hopeless when you stop panicking. Now, can you pick a simple locking charm? Sorry, can I what? I'll walk you through it. Basic unlocking charm. You'll need your wand. What follows is 15 frustrating minutes. Theodore has power. I can feel it through our bond. But his anxiety makes him second-guess everything. Clockwise rotation, not counterclockwise. But the book said the book assumes you're not panicking. Magic follows rotational logic. Clockwise. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. You're always nervous. Channel it into focus. Picture the lock mechanism. Now convince it to open. Don't force it. Why are you forcing it again? We go through several increasingly frustrating attempts. Theodore's hands are shaking, his confidence plummeting with each failure. But finally, on the 8th attempt, there's a soft click. There, was that so difficult? Yes, Theodore says flatly. But I can feel through our bond that he's actually pleased with himself. Practice room 7 is small, dusty, clearly not used frequently. But there, hastily shoved behind a stack of unused practice dummies in the corner, is a canvas bag. Theodore opens it carefully to reveal spellbooks with various names written inside. Small vials of potion ingredients, a silver wand focus, and a familiar care manual with bent corners. We found them, Theodore breathes. We certainly did. Now comes the harder part. We need to return these items and figure out what to do about Emily Renworth. Should we tell the headmistress? We could, or we can handle this ourselves. Think about it. A girl who steals from fellow students must have desperate reasons. Doesn't excuse the behavior, but might explain it. If we report her directly, she'll almost certainly be expelled. That might not be the most productive outcome. Wait, you mean you want me to talk to her? I want you to talk to her. I'll observe and provide guidance.
The truth tends to be effective, and you're not clever enough to maintain a convincing lie anyway. That's not exactly confidence-inspiring. I'm being practical. Now, let's find this girl. We locate Emily Renworth in the library. Ironically, near my old terrarium, which still sits empty on the reference desk. She's alone at a corner table, surrounded by books, looking utterly exhausted and miserable. Her eyes are red-rimmed. Theodore approaches slowly, carrying the bag. Through our bond, I can feel his heart pounding, but to his credit, he keeps moving. Emily? He says softly. She jumps, looking up with those red-rimmed eyes that immediately fix on the bag. Her face goes absolutely white. Yeah, I think these belong to some other students, Theodore continues, setting the bag on the table. Emily stares at it, then at Theodore. For a moment, I think she might bolt. Instead, she slumps in her chair. How did you know it was me? Several people saw you leave the ceremony early. And you're retaking first year practicals, so you'd be in the same classes. Are you going to report me? Her voice is barely a whisper. Theodore sits down. Why did you do it? Emily is quiet for a long moment. When she finally speaks, her voice cracks. Because I can't fail again. My family will disown me. They've already made it clear. One more failure and I'm cut off. No inheritance, no family name, nothing. I'll be nobody. That's no excuse for sabotage, I say, and Theodore dutifully repeats it. I know. Emily's voice rises, then breaks. I know it's wrong. I just panicked. Everyone else here is so naturally talented. I'm just struggling to keep up with the basics. I thought if I could just level the playing field for one class, maybe I'd have a chance to catch up, to prove I'm not completely worthless. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was desperate. Through our bond, I can feel Theodore's sharp recognition. He knows this fear intimately. The terror of not belonging, of being exposed as inadequate. Tell her about the supplementary resources, I say quietly,
Section B12 of the library. Practical spellwork for alternative learning styles. It's designed for wizards who struggle with standard learning methods. I've read through it, it's actually quite good. Theodore relays this information. Emily looks up, surprised. How do you know that? That section is restricted to advanced students. My familiar is well read, Theodore says, patting his pocket gently. Emily's eyes narrow slightly, looking at the pocket where I'm nestled. Your toad told you about advanced library resources. He's a very educated toad, Theodore says, and I can feel his nervousness about revealing too much. Careful, I warn him. Emily manages a weak, slightly hysterical laugh. That's either really weird or really sad. Can't decide which. Probably both, Theodore admits. Look, I understand being scared of failing. Trust me, I really do. I panic so badly during spells that I accidentally turn things into cheese. But making everyone else fail doesn't make you better. Just makes everyone else worse. And it doesn't solve your actual problem. You still need to learn the material. I know that. I didn't know what else to do. Study properly, Theodore says. And there's a firmness in his voice I haven't heard before. Use the resources I mentioned. They're specifically designed to help, and return the stolen items. Not to me. Put them back where you found them before tomorrow morning. If you do that, I won't say anything to anyone. Emily stares at him like he sprouted a second head. You're serious? You're not going to report me? Not if you return everything and actually try to learn, instead of sabotaging people. But why would you help me? We don't even know each other. Theodore is quiet for a moment. Because everyone deserves a chance to succeed. Because I know what it's like to be terrified that you don't belong here. Emily's eyes well up with tears. Thank you. Thank you, I'll return everything. Tonight, I promise. And so, by next morning, Marcus's spellbook has mysteriously reappeared on his desk. So have all the other stolen items returned to their proper places with no explanation. Marcus is delighted.
Must have been a first day prank,
he says. In practical transfiguration class, Professor Grimwald assigns them to transform a teacup into a mouse. I watch through Theodore's eyes as he raises his wand, begins the proper movements, and then his anxiety spikes. The teacup transforms into a small wheel of cheddar with tiny whiskers. Several students laugh. Professor Grimwald sighs deeply. Counterclockwise rotation, I remind him calmly. You went clockwise because you panicked. Try again. Breathe. Theodore tries again. This time, he produces something that's mostly mouse-shaped, though it appears to be partially made of cheese. The mouse thing squeaks uncertainly. Progress, I comment dryly. Disturbing, cheese-based progress, but progress. I also notice Emily Renworth sitting in the back row, looking nervous but determined. Her mouse is lopsided but functional. She catches Theodore's eye, and mouths, "Thank you." That evening, back in his dormitory, with Marcus gone to dinner, Theodore sets my terrarium where we can see each other directly and clearly. "We did it," he says quietly. "We actually solved something." Basic deduction, any competent investigator. But I'm not competent. Without you, I wouldn't have known where to start. You weren't completely useless. You listened to my instructions, which is rare among students. So you'll stay. You won't ask to be transferred back. I consider this. The library was comfortable, peaceful, predictable, but it was also mind-numbingly boring. In one day with Theodore, I've had more intellectual stimulation than I've had in years. I suppose I could tolerate you for a semester. You're marginally less annoying than my previous students, plus that cheese situation requires immediate attention. Theodore smiles. I think everyone got the familiars they needed. And I got someone who knows things. Someone who helps me think instead of panic. I feel something warm and uncomfortable. Gratitude, perhaps, or hope. As the dormitory settles into sleep, I watch Theodore's sleeping form. 24 students. 23 traded me back. But this anxious, cheese-producing disaster chose to keep me because he saw value in what I could offer. Perhaps this year might actually be interesting. It's adequate for a 200-year-old archmage trapped in a toad's body. Adequate is surprisingly close to perfect. My name is Midnight, and I am, without question, the most important resident of this cottage. The human who lives here, Elara, though I mostly think of her as my human, seems to believe she's in charge. But we cats know better. She feeds me, provides warmth, and keeps the cottage clean for my comfort. A perfectly adequate arrangement. This morning begins like most others, with an outrage. I wake to find my food bowl empty, completely scandalously empty. Now, not even a morsel of yesterday's fish remains. This is clearly a catastrophe of the highest order, and I inform my human of this travesty with a series of pointed yowls that echo throughout the cottage. But as I stretch, because one must maintain proper form even in a crisis, a scent hits my sensitive nose that makes my whiskers twitch with indignation. There is a stranger in my garden, an interloper, a usurper of my rightful territory. Through the cottage's small windows, I spot the offender, a brown tabby cat, bold as brass, actually eating my catnip. My catnip. The nerve of this creature knows no bounds. I puff my tail to its full magnificent size and stalk to the door, where I execute a perfect, pitiful, starving cat routine until Alara opens it for me. Humans are so easily trained when you know the right techniques. The morning air is crisp with the promise of autumn, and I can smell rain coming from the west. But first, territorial matters must be addressed. The invading cat, clearly a peasant with no understanding of proper boundaries, has the audacity to look up from my catnip and meow at me as if we're equals. I fix him with my most withering stare, the one that has cowed mice and made grown humans step aside. This is my domain, I communicate through a series of tail lashes and strategic ear positions. You are trespassing. The stranger, of course apparently too dim to understand basic cat protocol, actually sits down and begins grooming himself in my garden while staring directly at me. The insult cuts deep. I begin my approach, slow, deliberate, each paw placed with calculated precision. This is psychological warfare at its finest. But before I can reach optimal intimidation range, disaster strikes from an entirely unexpected direction. Oh, what a lovely cat! My human has appeared, and she's speaking in that ridiculous voice she uses when she thinks something is cute. To my absolute horror, she's walking toward the intruder with what appears to be a bowl of cream. You must be hungry, poor thing, she coos, setting down my cream for this vagrant. The betrayal stings. Have I not served faithfully? Have I not graced her cottage with my presence? accepting her offerings with dignity. And now she feeds random strays in front of me, as if my position means nothing. I execute a tactical retreat to reconsider my strategy, settling on the stone wall that borders the herb garden. From here I can survey my domain while plotting the downfall of this usurper. The strange cat who I've decided to call the interloper until I can devise a more insulting name, drinks my cream with obvious enjoyment. When he finishes, he has the gall to approach my wall. "Nice territory you have here," he says, in the easy manner of cats who've never had to fight for anything. "I'm Whiskers. My humans just moved to the village. They're the new blacksmith family." Whiskers. Of course he has a common name like that. No dignity whatsoever. I inform him with as much authority as I can muster. I am Midnight, guardian of this sacred space, protector of the herb garden, and chief advisor to the village's most skilled healer. This is my domain, granted to me by right of residence, intelligence, and superior hunting abilities. Whisker tilts his head. "Your human makes medicine?" I should have expected such ignorance. "My human," I explain with barely concealed patience, "is a master of the healing arts. She communes with plants, creates remedies that ease suffering, and possesses knowledge passed down through generations. I, naturally, am her most trusted assistant." This is entirely true. I do assist. Just yesterday, I knocked over a jar of bitter herbs that would have ruined a perfectly good tonic, saving my human, of course, from grave error. She didn't thank me properly, but humans rarely understand the subtleties of my help. "So, she's a witch?" Whiskers asks, with what sounds like interest rather than fear. I consider this carefully. The villagers do call her a witch sometimes, usually whispered behind their hands when they think no one is listening. But I've heard how they say it, sometimes with suspicion, sometimes with desperate hope when their children are sick and the village priest's prayers aren't enough. She is what she needs to be, I replied diplomatically. This is wisdom I've gained from years of observation. Labels matter less than results, and my human gets results. Our philosophical discussion is interrupted by a commotion from the cottage. raised voices carry through the morning air, and I recognize the deeper tones of Brother Benedict, the village priest. My fur stands up instinctively. Brother Benedict makes my human nervous, which makes me suspicious of him in principle. He has a habit of sniffing around the cottage, poking at things with his walking stick, and asking pointed questions about the source of Alara's knowledge. More importantly, he smells like incense and disapproval. 2 scents I find deeply offensive. I abandoned my territorial dispute for the moment and bound through the cottage door. Whiskers, apparently lacking any sense of propriety, follows me. The scent inside confirms my worst suspicions. Brother Benedict stands near my human's work table, his sharp eyes scanning the carefully arranged herbs and bottles. My human Lara stands beside him, her hands clapped tightly in front of her, a sure sign of distress.
The church has concerns,
Brother Benedict is saying, his voice carrying the weight of authority that humans seem to find so intimidating.
Your remedies have become quite popular. People speak of miraculous recoveries.
I only help where I can, my human replies quietly, using knowledge of plants and their properties. Nothing more. I position myself strategically near the work table. If Brother Benedict gets too close to anything important, I'm prepared to take action. It wouldn't be the first time I've accidentally knocked something over to protect my human's interests.
Knowledge,
Brother Benedict repeats slowly.
Knowledge. And where did you acquire this knowledge? It was not from our monastery's texts.
This is dangerous territory. I can smell the tension rising like smoke from a poorly tended fire. My human's hands are trembling slightly, and I know she's thinking of her grandmother, who taught her the old ways in secret, away from the church's disapproving gaze. But before my human can formulate a response that won't get her in trouble, another voice interrupts from the doorway.
Brother Benedict, thank the Virgin you're here.
Anna, the baker's wife, bursts into the cottage, her face flushed from running. Behind her comes young Tom, the blacksmith's apprentice, supporting a heavily pregnant woman I recognize as Mary, the miller's daughter.
The baby's coming,
Anna gasps.
and something's wrong. She's been laboring since yesterday dawn, but the child won't come. Please, Brother Benedict, you must.
I am a priest, not a midwife,
Brother Benedict says stiffly. but I can see uncertainty in his eyes. The Church teaches that suffering in childbirth is God's will, punishment for Eve's sin. But faced with Mary's obvious distress, even he seems troubled. All eyes, of course, turn to my human. This is the moment I've seen before, when the village's suspicion of her unnatural knowledge clashes with their desperate need for her skills. My human steps forward without hesitation. "Bring her to the bed," she instructs Tom and Anna. "Brother Benedict, if you wish to help, please pray for both mother and child while I examine her." I watch with some sort of admiration as my human transforms from nervous woman to confident healer. This is why I chose to stay with her. This moment when she becomes something more than human, when her knowledge flows like water finding its proper course. While the humans bustle around settling Mary on the cottage's small bed, I notice Brother Benedict's attention returning to the work table. He spotted the mandrake root, partially hidden behind a jar of mint leaves. Mandrake is problematic. The Church considers it devil's work, even though it's one of the most effective pain remedies available. Time for some direct action. I leap onto the table with fluid grace, positioning myself directly in front of the mandrake. Then I begin the most enthusiastic grooming session of my life, making sure my luxurious black fur fans out to completely obscure the offending plant. Brother Benedict frowns at me.
"Shoo, cat, shoo."
I, of course, completely ignore him, switching to grooming my hindquarters with the dedication of a monk at prayer. From this position, I can keep one eye on him while providing maximum coverage for the mandrake.
"Persistent creature,"
he mutters, but Mary's labored breathing draws his attention back to the more immediate crisis. My human works with quiet efficiency, her hands gentle as she examines Mary. I can see the concerns in her eyes. This birth is not progressing as it should. The baby has turned wrong, and without help, both mother and child are in danger. "The infant is breech," Alara murmurs to Anna. "I need to." "Is there anything you can do?" Anna interrupts, her voice cracking. "Some remedy? Some technique?" The word hangs in the air like smoke. Everyone knows what Anna is really asking. Does Alara have knowledge beyond what the Church approves? Can she do what the priests cannot? Brother Benedict's eyes narrow, and I can sense the trap closing around my human. If she admits to special knowledge, she risks accusations of witchcraft. If she does nothing, Mary and her child may die. But my human has more courage than the priest realizes. Anna, I need you to boil water. Tom, there are clean linens in the chest by the window. Brother Benedict? She pauses, meeting his gaze directly. I am going to attempt to turn this child. It is a technique I've learned from my grandmother, who served as midwife in this village for 30 years. There is nothing supernatural about it, only knowledge of the human body and God's design. The priest considers this. My human has been clever, invoking her grandmother's respected memory and framing her knowledge in terms of divine creation rather than unholy power. While humans prepare for the difficult birth ahead, I notice movement outside the window. Whiskers has gone back to the garden, but he's not alone. The village children have discovered him, and they're making a terrible racket trying to coax him closer. This prevents a new problem. The cottage is already crowded with the birth crisis, and the last thing we need is a gaggle of children adding to the chaos. I abandon my post guarding the mandrake and slip outside through the partially open door. The scene in the garden is worse than I feared. Not only are there 6 children making noise, but they've trampled through Ilara's carefully tended herb plots and their enthusiasm to pet the new cat. Young Sarah has managed to grab Whiskers and is squeezing him with the excessive affection that children mistake for love. I could simply ignore this disaster, but the herb garden is sacred. Those plants are essential to my human's work, and I cannot stand by while they're destroyed by careless feet. I execute my most impressive threat display. Back arched, fur standing on end, a yowl that could wake the dead. The children freeze, suddenly remembering why their parents tell them to be careful around cats. Shoo, children, I command, advancing with deliberate menace. Away from the sacred herbs. This is not a playground. Most of the children scatter, but young Sarah holds on to Whiskers with stubborn determination. This calls for more subtle tactics. I approach her slowly, switching to my most persuasive purr. Children are sensitive creatures. Show them something more interesting than what they're currently doing, and they'll abandon their first focus immediately. Sarah, I meow in my most compelling voice, winding around her ankles. Wouldn't you rather help inside? There's a baby being born, very exciting, much more interesting than bothering a strange cat. She releases Whiskers to pet me instead. Victory. sometimes diplomacy works better than intimidation. Sarah listens inside. Her eyes widen. I purr, gently herding her toward the cottage door. Your assistance may be needed. Very important work for a big girl like you. The other children, drawn by Sarah, forget about the garden entirely and crowd toward the cottage. I allow them to enter first, and follow with my dignity intact. Inside, the birth is progressing. My human has successfully turned the baby, and Mary's labored breathing has erased slightly. Brother Benedict kneels nearby, praying quietly, while Anna boils water and Tom hovers anxiously. The children's arrival actually helps. Their excited chatter distracts Mary from her pain, and their innocence seems to reassure Brother Benedict that nothing unholy is happening here. Just a skilled woman helping another woman in the most natural way possible. I settle on my favorite cushion near the hearth, keeping one eye on the proceedings while maintaining my dignity. Whiskers, apparently lacking any sense of appropriate boundaries, makes himself comfortable on my second favorite cushion. I allow this temporary transgression given the circumstances. The birth takes another hour, but finally, a baby's cry fills the cottage. Mary weeps with relief, while my human wraps the infant, a healthy boy, in clean linen. Anna bustles about making tea. Tom grins like he personally accomplished something miraculous, and even Brother Benedict looks satisfied. God's work, the priest announces, and my human nods humbly, though I can see the pride in her eyes. She did this. Her knowledge, her skill, her courage saved 2 lives today. As the excitement settles and the visitors prepare to leave, I notice Brother Benedict approaching the work table once more. But this time, his attention is caught by something else entirely. A small jar of honey that's been knocked over, its contents spreading across the wooden surface. I follow his gaze and realize with horror that in all the commotion, someone has disturbed my careful arrangement. The mandrake root is now clearly visible, sitting in a pool of honey like evidence of some arcane ritual. Brother Benedict's eyes narrow.
What plant is this?
My human turns, sees the exposed mandrake, and I watch her face pale. This could ruin everything. After successfully helping with the birth, after demonstrating that her knowledge comes from natural learning rather than dark powers, this single plant could still damn her. But then, Whiskers does something extraordinary. The foolish tabby cat suddenly yowls as if in great distress and launches himself directly at the work table. His claws catch the edge of the honey jar, sending it spinning across the surface. The jar strikes the mandrake root, knocking it to the floor where it rolls under a cabinet and out of sight. Brother Benedict steps back, brushing honey from his robes with obvious annoyance.
"You clumsy beast!"
"I'm so sorry," my human says quickly, moving to clean up the mess. "The cats must have gotten onto the table while we were distracted. You know how curious they can be." I stare at Whiskers in amazement. This bumbling interloper has just saved my human from serious trouble, and he did so naturally that Brother Benedict suspects nothing more than feline mischief. Perhaps this strange cat isn't entirely without merit. Brother Benedict departs with the others, apparently satisfied with whatever he witnessed. As the cottage returns to quiet, my human sinks into her chair with visible relief. "Well," she murmurs, scratching behind my ear in the way I particularly enjoy, "that could have gone much worse." I purr agreement, then look meaningfully toward the cabinet where the mandrake root lies hidden. Some things are better kept secret, at least from small-minded humans who can't appreciate the full spectrum of healing arts. But the day is far from over. As the afternoon sun slants through the cottage windows, I notice movement in the root cellar where my human stores her dried herbs. The wooden stairs creak under small, skittering feet, and my hunting instincts sharpen immediately. Rats. This is a serious problem. The cellar contains not just food stores, but precious herbs that take months to dry properly. A family of rats could destroy weeks of careful preparation in a single night. I inform Whiskers of the situation, and to his credit, he immediately grasps the severity of the crisis. "How many?" he asks, his ears prickled forward alertly. "At least 3 adults, possibly with young ones," I report, after a careful sniff near the cellar entrance. "They've made nests in the grain sacks and begun investigating the herb bundles." "This is war, then," Whiskers says, with the first show of proper seriousness I've seen from him. And so, we descend into the cellar together, our eyes adjusting to the dim light filtering through the small windows. The space is cramped but organized. Shelves lined with pottery jars, bundles of herbs hanging from the ceiling, sacks of grain and dried beans arranged against the walls. And there, bold as you please, a large brown rat sits atop a sack of barley, actually eating the grain while staring directly at us. I exchange a look with Whiskers. This level of disrespect
cannot stand. You take the left side, I whisper. I'll circle right. We drive them toward the center where they can't escape. Agreed, Whiskers whispers back. On your signal. The hunt that follows is a thing of beauty. Two cats working in perfect coordination, using the cellar's layout to our advantage, of course. We flush out not 3 rats, but 5. A serious infestation that could have caused tremendous damage if left unchecked. I personally account for 2 of the invaders, while Whiskers proves surprisingly content by catching one and cornering another until I can assist. The 5th rat escapes through a crack in the foundation, but not before I land a warning bite that will ensure it spreads word about the new security arrangements. As we emerge from the cellar, victorious and slightly dusty, I realize that Whiskers has earned a measure of respect. Any cat who takes rat hunting seriously and doesn't attempt to claim credit for my kills deserves consideration as a potential ally, rather than an interloper. Your territory is well defended now, Whisker says, grooming cellar dust from his paws. Those rats won't return soon. Our territory, I correct him, surprising myself with the admission. It seems there's enough space for 2 cats, provided proper protocols are observed, of course. Whiskers looks pleased, but doesn't push his luck by acting overly familiar. Yes. Smart cat. Yes. Our diplomatic breakthrough is interrupted by a new crisis. Through the cottage windows, I can see dark clouds building on the western horizon. The rain I smelled this morning is finally approaching, and it looks to be a serious storm. Now this presents multiple problems. First, my human has herbs drying on outdoor racks that must be brought inside before they're ruined. Second, the neighbors' chickens are loose again, wandering through the village and likely to end up in our garden seeking shelter. Third, and most personally concerning, I can smell wet dog approaching from the direction of the mill. Dogs and cats have a natural understanding about territory, but wet dogs lose all sense altogether. They shake themselves wherever they please. They track mud through clean spaces and generally make nuisances of themselves. I alert my human to the approaching weather by the time-tested method of running to the cottage door, yowling urgently, then running to the window to stare meaningfully at the clouds. She, of course, being properly trained by myself, immediately grasps the situation. "Oh, the herbs!" she exclaims, hurrying outside to gather the drying racks. Whiskers and I assist by supervising the operation and ensuring no precious plants are left behind. The wind is picking up now, and I can hear thunder rumbling in the distance. But as we work, the chicken situation becomes critical.
Sure enough, a flock of the neighbor's birds comes flapping and squawking into the garden, seeking shelter from the approaching storm. Normally, I might ignore them. Chickens are too large for practical hunting and too stupid for interesting conversation. But they're heading directly for the freshly planted herb seedlings that represent my human's winter medicine supply. This cannot be allowed. I signal to Whiskers, and we execute a perfect pincer movement. I take the direct approach, advancing with purpose and announcing my territorial claims through strategic hissing. Whiskers circles wide, appearing behind the flock to prevent escape in that direction. The chickens, being chickens, immediately panic and begin running in circles while squawking at volumes that could wake the dead. This attracts the attention of young Tom the blacksmith, who comes running to investigate the commotion. "Here! Here!" Tom calls, waving his arms to herd the chickens back toward their proper home. "Come along, you silly birds." With human assistance, we successfully redirect the chicken invasion. The birds retreat to their own yard just as the first fat raindrops begin to fall. Whiskers and I take shelter under the cottage's small porch, watching the storm develop with professional interest. Rain means fewer mice venturing out, but it also drives insects seeking dry places, creating different hunting opportunities. "Good day's work," Whisker comments, settling into a comfortable loaf position. "Indeed," I agree, though I maintain my dignity by keeping some distance between us. Alliance is one thing, excessive familiarity is another. The storm passes quickly, leaving the air clean and cool. As evening approaches, my human prepares our dinner. Fresh fish from the morning market, cream from the grateful miller whose daughter delivered safely, and a special portion of catnip for me as recognition of my day's service. Whiskers, being a guest, receives a respectable meal of fish scraps and fresh water. I note with approval that he waits for me to begin eating before starting my own meal. Proper etiquette. As we dine, I reflect on the day's events. Territory successfully defended, rats eliminated, dangerous herbs protected from official scrutiny, chickens redirected, storm preparations completed. A thoroughly productive day by any measure. But more than that, I've gained an ally. Now, Whiskers may lack my sophistication and deep knowledge of the cottage's routines, but he's proven himself competent in crises and respectful of proper hierarchy. These are valuable qualities in a partner. After dinner, as my human settles by the fire with her mending, both cats find our preferred spots in the cottage's warm embrace. I claim my traditional position on the cushion nearest the hearth, while Whiskers settles on a rag nearby. Close enough to demonstrate acceptance, far enough to show he understands his place. The cottage fills with the peaceful sounds of the evening. The fire crackling softly, my human's needle moving through fabric. The gentle patter of residual rain on the thatched roof. Outside, the village settles into sleep, secure in the knowledge that skilled hands are available when needed. I begin my evening grooming routine, a meditative process that helps me process the day's events. Today brought challenges, but each was met and overcome with proper application of feline wisdom and strategic thinking. My human glances over at us, and I catch the fun smile on her face. She understands, I think, that she is blessed now with not just one but two guardian cats. Double the protection, double the hunting prowess, double the wisdom to guide her through whatever challenges tomorrow may bring. As the fire burns lower and the cottage grows drowsy, I allow my eyes to drift closed. Tomorrow will bring new adventures, new problems to solve, new demonstrations of my superior intelligence and tactical thinking. But tonight, all is well in my domain. I purr softly, the sound joining with Whisker's gentle snoring and the settling sounds of the cottage around us. This is how it should be, predator and prey in proper balance, territory secure, allies chosen wisely, and humans properly supervised. Life, as a witch's cat, is challenging work. But someone must do it, and I, Midnight, am clearly the cat for the job. The last thing I see before I sleep is my human banking the fire for the night, moving with the quiet confidence of someone who knows her place in the world. Thanks to my efforts, and admittedly some small assistance from Whiskers, she is safe, her reputation intact, her skills available to help the village through whatever troubles may come. Tomorrow I shall have to teach Whiskers about the seasonal herb gathering routines, the proper protocol for dealing with various types of human visitors, and the ancient art of appearing completely innocent while conducting necessary surveillance operations. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That is tomorrow's work. Tonight we rest, secure in our cottage, surrounded by the scents of healing herbs and the warmth of well-tended fire. All of it is as it should be in the domain of Midnight, guardian cat, tactical advisor, and keeper of cottage wisdom. My purr deepens as sleep approaches, a sound of complete satisfaction with the day's work well